Oops.
Yes.
Bonjour tout le monde. C'est vraiment un grand plaisir d'être avec vous ce matin. It's all right. All I said was it's a great pleasure to be with you all this morning. And it's something that came on us by surprise through Colin and Leslie, we came upon by surprise many years ago, didn't we? Yes. It was a surprise. It was a great surprise. But they've asked us to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in France. And I need to give you a health warning at the beginning because we're so enthusiastic about what's happening in France. We could go on all day. So if you've got roasts in the oven and you need to get up and go, fine. Or if you want to stop us, just hold up a white flag or something and we'll stop. I'm going to go back, because I'm going to start, let's see if I can find my right bit of paper. I'm going to start back in 1986, for those who are not too young to remember that. When I actually offered for selection for full-time ministry in the Anglican Church, as the only thing you could be was a deaconess. They weren't ordaining women to the priesthood. And I'd taken a long time deciding that I could give up teaching, which had always been my passion. And the result came back, which they tell you is not rejection, it's a non-selection, saying your ministry is in teaching. And I was really cross with God, really cross with him, because it had, as I say, it took me a long time to decide I could give this wonderful profession up. So I was saying to him, why? Well, the very next year I discovered why. In 1987, I was teaching at Hungerford, and the now infamous Michael Ryan ran amok in the village, shooting a lot of people that I actually knew, and parents of people in school, and one of our dinner ladies. But we actually knew Michael as well, and he wasn't the monster that he was painted to be, but that's another story. But I was the only Christian on the staff. So I actually took on board an awful lot of the getting alongside people, parents and children, and trying to help them to go through this process. And then the very next year, I was struck with ME, which is a very debilitating illness. It just wiped me out. In 24 hours it wiped me out, and I could do nothing. And that was the end of my teaching career. So again, I was angry with God. Not just angry with him, but very angry. I'd given up this vision of being in full-time ministry, and I'd carried on with teaching, and suddenly that was all taken away, and I didn't know what to do. Just as a little aside, I got a pension on health grounds. That is important, way down the line. We went for a day on the healing ministry run by St Aldate's Church in Oxford. And at the very end of it, I couldn't participate at all because I couldn't talk to people. I didn't really want to be there, but Rog wanted to be there, so being a good wife, I went along with it. And suddenly, at the very end, a lady in the back stood up and she said, I don't know who this is for, but she said, I have to read this. And this is what she read. If I can find it. This is what the Lord says, He who created you, O Jacob, He who formed you, O Israel. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, and you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord, your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Saviour. I give Egypt for your ransom, Cush and Seba in your stead. And this was the bit that really hit me between the eyes. Since you are precious and honoured in my sight, and because I love you. I will give men in exchange for you and people in exchange for your life. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Now, in my ministry within our local church, I had always taught people that God loved them, but I could never take it on board for me. That was for everybody else. I wasn't worthy of God's love. And this just hit me. And I went and spoke to the lady afterwards and told her my situation. And she said, that's interesting. She said, I'm recovering from ME. And this was the beginning of my healing from ME. But I'm going to stop there because Roger's going to take on the next little bit, aren't you, Rog?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. Yes. So, we had both, as Beri has indicated, we were both involved in our local church. I'd been running youth club and all sorts of other activities revolving around the church. And really, it became obvious through the Lord's guidance that I should present myself for ordination. I mean, part of that was that I was 50, well, I was due to be over 50 by the time I came out of college if I was selected. But the then bishop said, that's okay, I'll guarantee you a place. Okay, so this is God saying, no, I mean it, you've got to go and do it. So I was ordained in 1995 in the Church of England, went to St John's College, Nottingham, and ended up in a small village, well, small, 9,000 population, called Grove down in Oxfordshire. Next door to Wantage, if you may have heard of that place, but it's quite a long way south. But in any case, I was curate in Grove and had a superb training incumbent, because you may know that if you're a curate in the Church of England as you come out of college, then you work with an established priest. But that was really exciting because he was a tremendous guy. When I heard that, well, when we heard that he'd been there 27 years, we thought, oh, it's going to be deadly, you know. But was it? It was really superb. He dragged the church up by its bootstrings and gone from about 12 people up to hundreds. And the Sunday school was 120 to start with, you know. So it was a really superb parish to be in. And it was good. I think I can say thoroughly, both of us enjoyed it, didn't we? Because we ended up by Beri and the vicar and myself being a team of 3 working in a parish of 9,000, which also had strict Baptists, who we hardly ever saw, Methodists, the Free Evangelicals, if anybody's from that route, and the Cana Fellowship, which was an independent church fellowship. But it was a great place to be, as I say. And while this was all going on, we decided, we had a house in Newbury, and we decided to possibly, we weren't very good landlords, we didn't go through an agent. I guess that wasn't our gifting, to be landlords. But we thought, well, a lot of people seem to have bolt holes in other places, so we thought about looking in France. And in 1996 we actually bought a small house in Brittany. If you know Brittany at all, it's north of Vale and west of Rennes, but otherwise don't worry. We used to go over there on holidays 4 times a year, and we used to lend it to people from the parish who couldn't afford a holiday. We say, well, just give us a few bob towards the gas or the electricity and just go and use it, which quite a few people did. And so we used to, as I say, go out about 4 times a year, and there were people, British people around, who would say, you know, there's nothing here at all. Nothing here at all. You know, we need people like you out here. And this set us thinking, or at least the Lord did. And so we thought, okay, well, I wonder what there is about this. Should we be seeking somewhere seeking some way of getting there. And in 1998, the then Bishop of Buckingham, because Oxford is made up of Buckinghamshire, Berkshire and Oxfordshire, and the Bishop of Buckingham told me to go and look at a parish in which was Wolverton, part of the Milton Keynes setup. And I'd worked in the Milton Keynes area anyway because I was children's advisor to the Oxford Diocese. Anything to do with children in any way was on my brief. So we went to look at this parish, and would you believe, everything seemed absolutely superb. Lovely vicarage, superb church, and the church wardens at the time said, can't you start tomorrow? And we thought, okay, we'll have to go and see what the authorities say about this. So we went, we gave it a lot of prayer and a lot of thought, and whilst it seemed ideal, the Lord said, don't want you to do that. No, that's not what I want you to do. And we discovered in the end that he really wanted us to go to France. We went to ICS, Intercontinental Church Society, which is a mission agency which places chaplains in various parts of the world, even as far south as the Falklands and in Europe and all over. And Kiev, yeah. And we also went to see the diocese in Europe, which looks after Europe as a big area of administration, if you like. And they all said, yes, super idea, but we can't afford to pay you. So we thought, aha, okay, but I'll let Beri do some of the next bit.
This is where that pension becomes important, because in moving to France, we had to guarantee to the authorities that we had a certain level of income, otherwise we wouldn't be allowed to settle there. And I had this little teacher's pension. And while Roger was at theological college, I had spent time working in 2 Christian bookshops, and then working in our parish in Newbury, where I was pastoral assistant with the curate and the rector. And during that time they sent me on 2 courses. They sent me on a Christian counselling course, also at St John's, Nottingham, and I got a diploma in Christian counselling. And they sent me on a spiritual director's course, and that was to help me to walk alongside people in their Christian life. And all these things were sort of beginning to sort of feed together. And as part of my spiritual direction, I was working with a young lady who also had ME, and I used to go and see her each week, and we would pray together. And then another lady came and joined us. And on one occasion, while we were contemplating France but not too sure about it, one of them said to me, "What's going on about France?" So I said, "Well, we're fairly certain that's where we're meant to be going, but the trouble is, we like the life there, and we like the food, and Roger loves the wine," and she said, "So?" And I said, "Well, is that a good enough reason to be going?" And she referred me to Psalm 37, verses 3 and 4. "Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." Now, I don't know about you, but I think some of my early teaching in church had been, you've got to be miserable while you're serving God, and you can't go somewhere just because you like it. But this just showed how wrong that was. And I went back and I told Rog, and we met with some folk from the parish over a shared lunch. We used to have shared lunch every Sunday, and we met with these folk, and they said, "How's it going? What about the plans?" And we said, well, we believe it's what we're meant to be doing, and the only problem is we've got to meet this certain level of income, and we can't do it. And they said, "So why is that a problem?" And we said, "Well, we can't go if we haven't got enough money, and the church isn't going to pay us." So they said, "Well, that's not a problem." I think there were 8 of them round the table. If we all decided to sponsor you, that would top you up, and it would come above the level that you're supposed to have. And we'd never come across anything like this before. You know, we'd always been in paid work, hadn't we?
Oh, yeah.
And by the end of that lunchtime, we had more than we needed. God always piles on more than you need if you're working in his way, in his wish, in his desire. So, we decided to go to France.
We did have some other very conclusive signs from the Lord after that had happened, which really put the seal on the deal, as it were. And so we decided that we would make this move to France, and there were some local Christians who we met during our holiday visits about 4 times a year. And they were British expats, if you like, and they were also the local Catholics and the local Église Réformée, which is the part of the Protestant church in France. And they were very welcoming when we had put this, that we were going to move out. And in fact, when we moved out, we just increased our involvement with the locals in every way, and the Lord just blessed that. And as you can see in Luke 1:37, when the angel came to Mary, and in fact, nothing from with God, nothing is impossible. Yeah, that's right. That's different translation. That's fine. For no word from God will ever fail. No, it didn't. With God, nothing is impossible. We just went out in faith, and our first grandchild, a little boy, was 6 weeks old when we left the UK to go to France. And we established what turned out to be in the end 4 congregations by various meetings with people, and we built up 4 congregations, all with the blessing of the local Catholics as well, because we went to see the local Catholic bishop, and he greeted Beri like a long lost cousin, because we went along to see him just to, out of courtesy, to say, well, at the time we were Anglicans, saying, okay, we've come to minister in your area, it's we just come to see you and tell you. And this bishop said, well, I don't speak English. He said this in French. I speak Breton. I was born in Finistère, which is a bit at the far end of Brittany. And when I introduced Beri as Welsh, he virtually fell on her and gave her a great big hug, and not quite a kiss, was it? But and he was quite an elderly sort of guy, but absolutely recognised her as being a cousin, because of course it was the Welsh that evangelised a lot of Brittany in actual fact, and so we were well established there. And we also had connections down in Nantes. Now, Nantes is just down around the corner from Brittany. If you imagine Brittany sort of sticking out like that, Nantes is on the corner just here, where it goes down the Atlantic coast. And I've shot all my papers on the floor. That was handy. Anyway, can you manage? Sorry. We were on our way to we went down to Nantes once a month, because that's the only way we could manage it. We couldn't do it once a week, as we had already established a congregation in a place called Ploermel, which is an hour west of Rennes, where it was within about 5 or 10 minutes of where we lived. And thank you, brilliant. And we had some friends down in Nantes. We'd established a congregation down there, a small congregation, and we were on our way down to that meeting, and we were both feeling absolutely awful. Beri said, I don't feel very well, and it's about an hour and a half, 2-hour journey. We were sort of whizzing down the motorway, and Beri said she didn't feel well, and then a few minutes later I felt exactly the same. I thought, oh crumbs, what do we do? So we rang up some friends in Brittany as part of our congregation elsewhere in Brittany, and they rang back. Barbara actually rang back with because we thought, well, is this the devil having a go? He doesn't want us to do things down here. And she rang back with Habakkuk 1:5, which says, be interesting to... So, it says, look at the nations and watch, and be utterly amazed, for I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. Now, you know, if we weren't committed Christians, that sounds a bit, what's he going to do? But that just confirmed that we were doing the right thing. We were following the Lord's will. And so we ended up down in Nantes. We did that meeting, and things went ahead quite happily. We got over our tummy upsets marvellously. The lady who was organising the meeting down there for us to go to, she found some very quick acting medicine actually, and we were fine, and we were able to take that meeting. And we did, yeah. And there was because the lady Barbara who'd given us the Habakkuk phoned round, because we had a prayer network on the phone, and so the Lord just intervened and made us well enough to do the meeting, and things got better and better all the way through after that. But as that began to happen, we thought, oh yeah, this is brilliant. We had a pretty cottage. It had a half tower on the side with a spiral staircase to get upstairs to the bedrooms, made in local stone, and we thought, yeah, okay, we can just imagine retirement when it comes. Brilliant. We're going to be here till we pop our clogs. But then, and this is you.
Sure how far we're supposed to be going. 1, 2, 5. I think we've gone to... No, this is all right. During the last 3 or 4 years in Brittany, we were visiting Spring Harvest campsite in the Vendée. We were invited down to give spiritual support to the team who was setting up the site, and then we were invited down when they opened the site to actually be speakers and run weeks there. And then they asked us if we'd come along and do pastoral care for the staff, do pastoral care for the guests. And gradually that whole thing grew. And we became aware that far from looking forward to retirement, a whole new ministry was opening up. There was a group down there who were meeting as a home group, and they wanted regular worship every Sunday. There was an Anglican presence in the Vendée, but because it's such a big area like Brittany, they only met in a different place each week, so people only got one service of worship on a Sunday in the month. And we'd been down there for a conference, and on the way back I said to Rog, I've got a really funny feeling about this, I've got a sense that God is sort of shaking the soil loose around our roots. And he said, funny you should say that. The same thing was happening for him. So we realised that what Father God was saying to us was, get me to the Vendée. Now, that is the last thing we actually wanted to do. We were settled. We were comfortable. What are you playing at, God? But it became very, very obvious. And again, we took a lot of time praying with people, consulting very trusted Christian friends, some of whom are sat here. We were given a prophecy by 2 ladies who'd come over from Australia. We met them over dinner one night. They'd never met us before. They knew nothing about us, what we were doing or anything. And it became very obvious from what they were telling us that God was indeed loosening our roots, and we were meant to go and transplant to the Vendée. And we had 3 very definite readings from Proverbs. Interesting, isn't it? Sometimes churches don't use the Old Testament very much. I'm sure you do, but sometimes they don't. But when we were going through planning this, we realised how important the Old Testament had been to us in our ministry, and still is. So, don't say I'll pay you back for this wrong. Wait for the Lord and he will avenge you. Is that what I've got written down? Sorry. Yes, it is. Wait for the Lord was the key there. And then commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. That was quite key. And many other plans in a person's heart, like we're going to stay here in Brittany and enjoy our lovely cottage, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. Get thee to the Vendée. And that's what we began to attempt to do. And I think we're going to worship again, are we, Colin? Because this is a natural break